With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yulana Weeks.
Our top stories.
First responders in St. Kitts praised for their dedication. East Bastia Apartments Complex on way to completion.
Ambassador Henry Martin reaffirms St. Kitts and Nevis's commitment to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Big Lice and 6 others to vie for Calypso Monarch title against reigning Queen Independent. CARICOM chair calls for collaboration in tapping into digital revolution. St. Lucia launches a task force to tackle gender-based violence. Grenada gets £10 million toward geothermal energy. Internationally, alleged Chinese spy had unusual degree of trust with Prince Andrew. Now, the details.
The first responders in St. Kitts were faced with 2 horrific vehicle accidents in less than a week. Despite all the efforts to save the lives of the severely injured, the outcome was not exactly what they had hoped for. The accident at F.T. Williams Highway on December 6 resulted in the deaths of 19-year-old Sheeda Jarvis and 18-year-old Malik Williams. Another crash in New Guinea on December 11 took the lives of Belinda Paul, Rosina Herbert, Dijon Davis, Ian Jules, and the 21-year-old Malik Rollins. Several others were injured. The news of the tragedies was greeted with shock, disbelief, and deep sadness by the country, but the bravery and dedication of first responders to recover bodies and save lives did not go unnoticed. Quote, "Even in this dark moment, we must honor the bravery of our first responders, police, fire and rescue officers, medical teams, and volunteers who acted swiftly and selflessly to save lives. Their courage reminds us of the strength within our community," expressed Dr. Denzil Douglas, Senior Minister of Government. A day following the December 11 tragedy, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Curtis Martin, shared how pleased he was with the team of medical professionals who, despite the harrowing situation, focused on the task at hand. Quote, "I must also place on record my profound thanks to our medical service professionals at JNF, Joseph and France General Hospital, who rose to the occasion and offered love and compassion in unison. Dealing with trauma can be chaotic, but not for the team I saw at work yesterday. Just reflecting on it brought tears to my eyes. I cannot thank the staff enough for making a positive difference in the dire circumstances placed before them." Unquote. Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew, too, was pleased with the response of the medical professionals. He said, quote, "I am immensely proud. The coordination was exceptional. These workers appeared from everywhere, whether at the scene or the hospital. The workers stepped up and selflessly served." Unquote. Like the first responders, grieving families and friends and the injured are in the thoughts of the community, who too are trying to come to grips with the sad reality. Quote, "When I learned of the severity of the accident, I recognized there would be a great outpouring of grief across our nation. I extend my deepest condolences to the loved ones whose lives will be affected by this tragedy. I pray you find strength to cope during this difficult time," said Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Jeffrey Hanley. Hanley's expression of condolences is but one of many on radio and social media, which underscores the profound grief throughout the community. In 5 days, 7 lives were lost in 2 separate incidents. Nothing of this magnitude had taken place in the country in decades. The National Housing Corporation expressed its commitment to provide housing solutions to the people of St. Kitts, particularly East Bastia, where derelict homes were demolished to facilitate new homes. The 4-unit apartment complex under construction at East Street in East Bastia is progressing towards completion, said John L. Rollins, General Manager of the National Housing Corporation, at a site visit on December 11.
We've almost completed the septic and soakaway, and a few minor things need to be completed. But for the new year, you definitely will have 4 families very happy to be in this 4-unit, 2-bedroom building. The units are very spacious. They have cupboards, they're fully tiled. You have an area, it's called the dry room. It's a space on the inside that you can just hang your clothes to dry. Definitely they're going to have the water tanks on the top of the roof. That's a given.
The building of the apartment complex is a reflection of true community spirit, as its construction has been solely by the hands and expertise of residents of East Bastia.
It was built by people from the community. And that is something good that I needed to make sure I emphasize. East Bastille played a major role in bringing the building to what it is right now. All anxious to get this building completed and start on the next two down at the bottom of the road on East Street.
The National Housing Corporation said that by systematically targeting neglected properties and rebuilding existing homes, it seeks to foster more vibrant communities.
The Permanent Council of the Organization of American States, OAS, held a special meeting on December 1st, 2024, in the Simon Bolivar Room at the OAS headquarters to commemorate Human Rights Day. This event served as a platform for member states to reflect on their dedication to human rights and to acknowledge the contributions of the international human rights community. Her Excellency Jacinth Henry Martin, Ambassador of St. Kitts and Nevis to the United States and Permanent Representative to the OAS, played a pivotal role in the proceedings by reaffirming her country's steadfast commitment to advancing and protecting human rights. In her speech, Ambassador Henry Martin emphasized the enduring values of equality, dignity, and respect enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris on December 10, 1948. This declaration has become a pillar of global human rights law and continues to inspire the creation of over 70 human rights treaties. Ambassador Henry Martin's remarks highlighted that despite global progress, troubling human rights violations persist in many regions. Her heartfelt address highlighted the struggles faced by individuals and communities deprived of their freedom and subjected to conditions that violate their fundamental rights. She expressed deep concern over the rising incidence of injustice, undermining the ideals the Universal Declaration of Human Rights espoused. In a poignant moment, Ambassador Henry Martin acknowledged the significant threats posed by climate change, which she argued are increasingly impacting human rights, particularly in small island nations like St. Kitts and Nevis.
The impacts of climate change pose significant challenges to the human rights of people in small states such as St. Kitts and Nevis, where rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and environmental degradation threaten livelihoods, housing, and access to essential resources.
She outlined how these environmental factors disrupt lives and jeopardize rights to health and well-being, underscoring the critical need for integrated approaches to ensure resilience against climate-related adversities. In her statement, she further emphasized food insecurity as a growing form of vulnerability, saying,
"When people lack access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food, their rights to health, life, and dignity are fundamentally compromised."
This reinforces the importance of holistic solutions encompassing climate resilience and human rights protections. Throughout her address, the ambassador expressed gratitude for the efforts of judges Eduardo Ferreira McGregor and Humberto Antonio Serra Porta, who are concluding their terms at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. She thanked them for their invaluable contributions to human rights in the region. Ambassador Henry Martin's genuine commitment to human rights reflects St. Kitts and Nevis's national policies and aligns with the broader goals of the OAS and the international community. In closing, she expressed heartfelt appreciation to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights president, judges, and survivors present at the meeting. She also commended the dedicated Secretariat staff for their steadfast commitment to advancing and preserving human rights across the Americas.
Your stalwart efforts to uphold justice, promote inclusivity, and protect the most vulnerable have had a far-reaching and enduring impact on the lives of many within our region.
Ambassador Henry Martin's passionate invocation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and its core principles reasserts St. Kitts and Nevis's role as a proactive advocate for human rights within the OAS and the broader international community. Her words resonate as a call to collective action, urging all member states to renew their efforts towards ensuring equity, justice, and the protection of human dignity for all individuals, regardless of their circumstances or background. The profound commitment expressed by St. Kitts and Nevis reinforces the notion that human rights are universal and must be upheld for the benefit of every person across the globe.
I will not stand around and watch my country run aground.
It was a night of lyrical battle as 16 Calypsonians went head-to-head during the Sugar Mass 53 Senior Calypso Monarchs semifinals held on December 12, 2024. The top 7 semifinalists who made it into the Carib Senior Calypso Finals were announced. The finalists will compete against the reigning Queen Independent at Carnival Village on Friday, December 27, 2024. According to the official results released on the St. Kitts Nevis National Carnival Facebook page, the list of performers are Big Lice, who led with a score of 457 points, followed closely by Drusi with 453 points. Lady Karen's and Queen Kibi tied with 443 points each. Issa Kamal has 434 points, followed by Queen Singing Jackie with 429 points, and Lady Diva with 421 points. Mighty Freddy is listed as an alternative without a score. The Carib Senior Calypso Finals will occur on December 27, 2024 at 7 p.m. at Carnival Village, Bastille, St. Kitts. Tickets are $40 and can be purchased at Digicel on 4th Street, Central Service Station, Victoria Road, First Federal, Central Street, or online at www.skncarnival.com. On December 10th, 2024, Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell of Grenada delivered a powerful keynote address at the Connected Caribbean Summit in Miami, Florida. Prime Minister Mitchell called for a bold regional collaboration to harness the digital revolution and enhance Caribbean integration as the current chair of CARICOM and the lead head of responsibility for science and technology within the CARICOM quasi-cabinet. His address themed Action Time, Accelerating Caribbean Integration and Development, emphasized digital technology's transformative potential while acknowledging the region's significant challenges. During his speech, Prime Minister Mitchell highlighted the critical need for unity and decisive action in the face of formidable challenges that have historically fragmented the Caribbean.
And the barriers are familiar, perhaps not so familiar. Climate change, I think by now everyone appreciates, is a major challenge, an existential one, and it continues to ravage our shores while we are scrambling constantly for resources to rebuild. Cybersecurity has emerged as a major threat while our economies are now beginning to digitize, but we remain completely fragmented in our defenses. And it's already been addressed this morning. Social inequities persist, leaving too many people on the margins of opportunity.
These remarks painted a vivid picture of the socioeconomic barriers that hinder regional progress. Moreover, he drew from real-life experiences such as the development of Starlink technology during Hurricane Beryl to illustrate how digital solutions can enhance resilience and connectivity in crises. Mitchell's vision for the future is equally ambitious. He posited that the digital age offers unprecedented opportunities for innovation and growth. He emphasized the goal of ensuring that every citizen has access to affordable, high-speed internet and establishing regional hubs that can drive progress in key sectors such as agriculture, tourism, and manufacturing. The Caribbean Chair laid a digital transformation roadmap, pinpointing 4 critical areas: fostering partnership with private sector, streamlining regulatory processes, making significant investments in digital infrastructure, and prioritizing digital skills development.
The global job market is transforming, and the demand for digital competencies is growing rapidly across every sector.
He stated, acknowledging that equipping the Caribbean youth with the necessary digital tools is vital for future success. In his conclusion, Prime Minister Mitchell called on all stakeholders to collaborate boldly, innovate fearlessly, and act accountably.
It is simply not the time for timidity. If we are timid, we will be left behind. We need to ensure that we innovate fearlessly, and I therefore want us to recognize and appreciate the existing innovators that we already have in the region who are doing their part to make sure that the Caribbean is not left behind in this particular revolution. This is a moment for gravitas and inspiration. We need both. And so sometimes we may take ourselves too seriously and not take the task at hand seriously. We need to do both. It is a wonderful opportunity. It is an opportunity that should excite all of us. And it's an opportunity that we should grasp together, collectively, to ensure that the collaboration and connection creates the infrastructure, creates the institutions, and continues to inspire the next generation of Caribbean citizens to make us more connected and more successful. We need to move beyond resilience to that of sustainability and to that of success.
As CARICOM looks to the future, the summit served as a vital platform for fostering discussions on transforming from dialogue to actionable initiatives, ultimately paving the way for a cohesive and digitally empowered Caribbean community. In regional news, St. Lucia launches a task force to tackle gender-based violence, DBS St. Lucia reports.
The interagency GBV task force will help improve how St. Lucia responds to gender-based violence, GBV, by better coordinating services across different sectors. Its goal is to make sure that the teamwork and partnership already started continues to grow and become a permanent part of the country's approach to GBV. The task force will work with the government agencies as well as community organizations to create lasting systems for preventing and responding to GBV. It will also involve groups like people with disabilities and young people to ensure that everyone is included in these efforts, in line with the Sustainable Development Goals principle of leaving no one behind.
We have all forms of violence, but when it comes to attacking somebody because you're a man or because you're a woman, we have to speak strongly against that. Because whoever the person is, you did not make yourself a man, you did not make yourself a woman. And why should somebody attack you and kill you or murder you or beat you up because you're a woman? So these are the issues that we want this task force to monitor and to keep the statistics and give us the data that is necessary for us to see the extent to which we have gender-based violence in St. Lucia.
This initiative is supported by the UN Women Multi-Country Office in the Caribbean through the Build Back Equal BBE project, with funding provided by Global Affairs Canada and implemented in collaboration with the UNFPA. The BBE project underscores the importance of regional collaboration in addressing gender-based violence and was launched in St. Lucia in 2022.
We're not only focusing on women. What we do recognize is that violence in the home is usually a good predictor of violence in the community. And so if you want to address gang violence, and we have UE, there's a center that studies criminology. When they look at the young men who are in gangs in prison and they ask them about their childhood, not only have they experienced some form of violence in terms of child sexual abuse or physical abuse, but they've also witnessed their mothers being abused. So this is a way, if you want to get to the root cause of violence, to do that. And it's not just gender affairs that needs to do it, because you need to have housing, you need to have transport, you need to have education, you need to have health. Health is critical. CARICOM just had a recent meeting that violence is a public health issue as well. So all of the players need to be at the table.
The task force was launched on Thursday, 12 December. For the DBS News World, Miriam Montoute reporting.
Grenada gets £10 million toward geothermal energy. Grenada Broadcasting Network has the details.
The funding aims to generate evidence of the viability of geothermal resources in Grenada, enabling the nation to harness this renewable energy source for electricity generation. A statement from Baroness Chapman reads in part, and I quote, "I am thrilled to announce £10 million in new funding, which is supporting Grenada's efforts to reduce its reliance on fossil fuels and transition to a more sustainable, locally sourced energy future. The investment in geothermal energy will not only help to lower energy costs for households and businesses, but will also lead to lower carbon emission, an essential step in tackling the climate crisis we all face. This is an important part of the UK government's commitment to supporting the Caribbean region in its journey towards green energy adoption and climate resilience." Unquote. Prime Minister Mitchell, in his response, said the funding will allow government to assess Grenada's geothermal potential and take further steps towards building a clean, sustainable and more affordable energy system for Grenada. He said government is excited about the possibilities this project holds for Grenada's future. He said the investment comes at a crucial time, with Caribbean nations being heavily reliant on expensive imported fossil fuels to meet their energy needs, and the average Caribbean consumer pays double the rate of those in the United States. He further stated that the economic burden of those imports hinders growth and resilience building efforts, leaving nations such as Grenada vulnerable to external shocks. Prime Minister Mitchell said today's financial commitment would help to alleviate this dependency, allowing Grenada to move towards a more sustainable, cost-effective and locally sourced energy solution. Geothermal energy has vast untapped potential, but the high upfront cost of exploring and testing for geothermal resources continues to deter private investment. As a result, public investment is essential to kickstart these projects. The UK has already provided £19.3 million to the Renewable Energy Programme in the Caribbean since 2015, which has directly supported renewable energy and energy efficiency initiatives in Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia and Grenada. Christelina John, GBN News.
We now bring you these international reports.
A Chinese businessman described as a close confidant of the Duke of York has lost his appeal against a decision to bar him from entering the UK on national security grounds. The Home Office said they believe the man, known only as H6, was engaged in covert activity for the Chinese Communist Party and that his relationship with Prince Andrew could be used for political interference. Well, let's go to our correspondent, Charlotte Gallagher, who's outside Windsor Castle for us. Charlotte, hello to you. What more do we know about the relationship then between Prince Andrew and this man known as H6?
Well, we know that they had a very close working relationship, Anita, and we know that this man known as H6 was invited to Prince Andrew's 60th birthday party in 2020 and that he was told that he could act on Prince Andrew's behalf when it came to talking to potential investors in China. So it was a close working relationship. There's also a letter from one of Prince Andrew's senior advisors describing this man at being the very top of the tree when it came to Prince Andrew's contacts. So Prince Andrew met this man, thought he was a Chinese businessman that could help him. However, the security services and then the Home Office believed that this man was in fact a spy and working for the Chinese Communist Party. So he was barred from the country last year by the then Home Secretary Suella Braverman, and his devices were seized and they were gone through, and there was various communications on there, letters and messages that they found to be very suspicious. Now, this man lodged an appeal, and as you said, he's now lost that appeal on national security grounds. This is very embarrassing for Prince Andrew, and of course it's not the first time that his relationships and also his judgment has been questioned. Of course, in 2019 he was essentially sacked as a working royal after his friendship with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, so he no longer has any kind of public role for the royal family. Buckingham Palace have said they won't be commenting. He's no longer a working member of the royal family, and we've heard nothing from Prince Andrew himself. The Chinese embassy in London has said that there is always people in the UK willing to spread what they call baseless theories about Chinese spies.
And Charlotte, do we know what was in it for Prince Andrew, this relationship with the Chinese businessman?
You would imagine money and financial benefits. If a royal biographer is to be believed, the king has essentially cut Prince Andrew off financially. He lives here in Windsor, not too far from where we are on the Windsor estate, in a very large home, and he will have to pay for the upkeep of that home, the security, his own personal security, and for that he will need millions of pounds. So it's believed his financial pressures could be essentially what this spy was wanting to exploit.
Inside massive warehouse on the western edge of Damascus, rebel fighters found what appears to be an industrial-scale narcotics lab. The rebels who ousted President Bashar al-Assad say they found thousands of pills of an addictive amphetamine-like stimulant commonly known as Captagon. Many were packed inside electrical equipment. This fighter said, quote, "This is how they wrap them and send them to countries abroad." He said they were meant to be wrapped in copper to hide them. Some pills were secreted inside fruit. Assad's government long denied its ties to the international narcotics trade, but he was accused by Washington and others of profiting from the production and sale of Captagon. The fall of his regime has allowed journalists to start searching Syria for evidence of the Captagon empire for the first time. Experts say the annual trade in Captagon is worth billions of dollars a year, and Western governments have linked the illicit trade in Syria to Assad's brother, Maher al-Assad. His whereabouts are not known, and Reuters could not reach him for comment on the allegations. Inside the warehouse was a pill press and dozens of barrels, boxes, and bottles of different chemicals. Captagon was the brand name of a stimulant first produced in Germany in the 1960s to help treat attention conditions. It was discontinued, but an illicit version of the drug known as poor man's cocaine continued to be produced. The stimulant has become entrenched across the Middle East, from the front lines of wars to high-end parties. It has been banned in many countries, including the U.S., and can have harmful side effects. The Damascus site is one of several fighters say they have found across the country where the drug was produced and prepared for export. And according to the director of a New York-based institute that tracks the Captagon trade, it appears to be one of the largest Captagon labs ever found.
The British economy unexpectedly shrank in October. Welcome to Market Insight. I'm Ramzan Karmali. Well, UK GDP contracted 0.1%. A Reuters poll had actually predicted expansion. The news will come as a blow to Finance Minister Rachel Reeves and her mission to boost growth. This data suggests that the economy declined even before Reeves's £40 billion tax-raising budget on October 30th. So does this mean things will get worse for the UK economy? Well, to help answer that and more, I'm joined by Josh Passmore, Investment Director at Artemis. Josh, thanks so much for joining us. So what's your reaction to this contraction? I mean, it also marks the first back-to-back monthly declines in over 4 years. But should we be cautious about reading too much into the numbers, as monthly data has a reputation to be fairly volatile, no?
Hi, Ramzan. Yeah, I'd agree. Month-to-month economic data can be very volatile, as you say. But I think we need to try and maybe think about some of the longer-term trends here. The economy has definitely slowed in the last few months. Growth was much stronger towards the start of the year. And actually, if we look back to the first half of the year, the UK was the fastest growing economy in the G7. However, I think I would maybe make the point more generally that growth in the UK and sort of the macroeconomic story in the UK has been better than the general narrative would have you believe over the last 2 to 3 years. Our interactions with companies and indeed the data would suggest that the consumer's in pretty good health. There's also sort of in the region of £300 billion worth of excess savings on the sidelines in consumers' pockets, and we've actually got positive real wage growth as well. So I would agree the economy is definitely slowing, but I think it's important to make the point that growth hasn't necessarily been as bad as you might have thought over the last few years. Maybe one more point to make is that for us as investors, the UK stock market and the UK economy are quite different beasts. The UK is the world's most global stock market with 75% of revenues derived from overseas. So when we're thinking about the success and failure of some companies in the UK, they're not necessarily too closely related to the economy.
Sure, but what about things getting worse potentially? I mentioned in the introduction Rachel Reeves's October budget. A lot of plans to raise taxes there. Could that make things a lot worse?
Yes, I think in the short term, things could definitely get worse. Obviously, the burden on business from the budget, so increase in national insurance contributions, etc., was probably slightly more than we would have expected or wanted. But the government's entire manifesto really was to grow the economy. So we would hope that some more sort of supply side reforms that were maybe originally lacking in the budget in October are announced over the next few months. We've heard some positive noises, I think, so far, but we sort of wait for concrete action there.
Now, next week, the Bank of England meet. Could today's data perhaps make them consider cutting rates again, or is it just a bit too close to the date?
It's a fair question. I think I would probably say it's a bit too close to the date. Market's not expecting a cut next week. The market expects 3 cuts next year, and 4 cuts is what the bank themselves has forecast. I think we would make a couple of points there. I think firstly that sort of the market has been a pretty poor predictor of future interest rate moves over the last 2 or 3 years across this very aggressive hiking cycle. And then also, I think central banks probably have reason to be cautious as opposed to aggressive with interest rate cuts, primarily because unemployment's still pretty low across a lot of Western economies. Wage growth is quite strong, and government balance sheets are very indebted. So we would probably say the risk is that rates are not cut as quickly as the market or investors might like.
But isn't there a problem here for the Bank of England? We had the ECB cut yesterday. We'll likely see the Fed cut as well next week. Does the bank risk sort of being left behind here?
I think it's a fair question. And, don't fight the Fed is a very popular phrase for a reason. I think what we would say more generally, though, going back to that earlier point, we don't really see the path for interest rates to fall particularly quickly anywhere, just given the strength of the global economy. Now, you never know what might be around the corner. If we were to go into recession, that would be very different. But we're not necessarily sure there's too much wiggle room for aggressive interest rate cuts over the short term.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
First responders in St. Kitts praised for their dedication. East Bastia Apartments Complex on way to completion.
Ambassador Henry Martin reaffirms St. Kitts and Nevis's commitment to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Big Lice and 6 others to vie for Calypso Monarch title against reigning Queen Independent. CARICOM chair calls for collaboration in tapping into digital revolution. St. Lucia launches a task force to tackle gender-based violence. Grenada gets £10 million toward geothermal energy. Internationally, alleged Chinese spy had unusual degree of trust with Prince Andrew. Thank you for listening.